What's going on, guys? Carlos here. On this video, I'm gonna give you my reaction to Simon Sinek and his thoughts on millennials. Hey, what's going on, guys? Carlos here. So Simon Sinek is a very well-known author, public speaker. His book that he's most famously known for is Start With Why. He has one of the most popular, if not the most watched TED Talk of all time. And most recently, I was sent a video by a couple of colleagues of Simon's from back in September. And more specifically, Simon goes into great detail around the 4 characteristics that are plaguing millennials, such as parenting, technology, impatience, and environment. So throughout this video, I'm going to share with you some of the sound bites of Simon's interview. And as a millennial who was born in 1983, now granted, I'm a little bit older of a millennial at 33, but as a millennial, I'm gonna go ahead and sound off on my reaction of Simon. There's a couple of things throughout the interview that really struck a chord with me. And a couple of those specifically are saying that millennials were dealt a bad hand, or failed parenting strategies are the reason in which why today we're so addicted to technology and being made to feel that we're important and entitled. So here's the first clip. I want you guys to go ahead and hear from Simon directly, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sound off.
Apparently millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic and self-interested, unfocused, lazy. But entitled is the big one. And because they confound leadership so much, what's happening is leaders are asking the millennials, what do you want? And millennials are saying, we want to work in a place with purpose, love that. We want to make an impact, you know, whatever that means. We want free food and beanbags. And so somebody articulates some sort of purpose, there's lots of free food and there's beanbags, and yet for some reason, they're still not happy.
So this first segment here, Simon kind of makes fun of the fact that millennials are looking for purpose and they want to feel like they're making an impact. And here's where I start to have an issue with this. Oftentimes when you hear a non-millennial, so you hear a baby boomer or a Gen X speak about millennials, they often resort to this statement that Simon just said. They make millennials sound bratty and entitled and self-serving and pompous. And I have an issue with that because millennials aren't the first generation to come around to have wants, needs, and desires. I can almost assure you that my mom, who is Generation X, or my dad, who's a baby boomer, I'm sure they, growing up, had the same wants, needs, and desires, no more, no less than a millennial. They wanted to feel that they were appreciated in their workplace. They wanted to feel that everything that they're doing in their workplace or in their life is amounting to something and that they weren't just waking up. And I can tell you this, seeing my parents as I was growing up were extremely hardworking individuals, and they're still hardworking individuals. So let's go ahead and remove this stigma for a moment that millennials are this self-serving and entitled generation. The second thing that Simon says as he goes into this first segment is that millennials, they want the beanbags and the free lunches. This is something, however, that is the culture that's been established, not by millennials, but companies that now are hiring chief talent officers, and they're really putting emphasis into trying to attract top-tier talent to go work for them. If you want to be able to hire and attract top-tier talent and your name is not Google, you have to have the inner workings of your company that resembles Google or resembles Facebook. And that's real talk, friends. That's keeping it 100. Again, that's not a millennials thing because the millennials feel that they need it in order to survive. I can tell you this as someone that used to work at LinkedIn and had access to beanbags and free lunch and a very cool work environment. That stuff at the end of the day doesn't really stimulate growth or innovation if you don't have the support system around you. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the next segment with Simon's points.
I can break it down into 4 pieces, right? There are four things, 4 characteristics. One is parenting, the other one is technology, the third is impatience, and the fourth is environment. The generation that we call the millennials, too many of them grew up subject to, not my words, failed parenting strategies, where, for example, they were told that they were special all the time. They were told that they could have anything they want in life, just because they want it, right? They were told, some of them got into honors classes, not because they deserved it, but because their parents complained. And some of them got A's, not because they earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents. Some kids got participation medals. You got a medal for coming in last, right? Which the science we know is pretty clear, which is it devalues the medal and the reward for those who actually work hard. And it actually makes the person who comes in last feel embarrassed because they know they didn't deserve it. So it actually makes them feel worse, right? So you take this group of people and they graduate school and they get a job and they're thrust into the real world, and in an instant they find out they're not special, their moms can't get them a promotion, that you get nothing for coming in last, and by the way, you can't just have it because you want it.
Let's stop right there, guys. This last sentence that Simon said really struck a nerve with me. And it resonated because I'm an only child. And growing up as a kid, my mom and dad gave me everything. And I say everything that I possibly wanted. If I wanted a new pair of Jordans, it was there. If I wanted the latest video game, it was there. And they didn't do that because I was necessarily spoiled or I felt I was entitled and I needed it. But they did it because they genuinely loved me and they wanted to be able to give me what they, growing up in Cuba, did not have. Now, the second piece to this is in terms of making your kids feel so special that they can do anything. This comes down to parenting. And I just want to be very clear. I'm not knocking Simon down by any means. I don't know if Simon's a dad. I don't know his upbringing specifically. But as a parent of 2 kids and with one on the way, I will humbly say this, that as a parent, it is essentially your responsibility to instill a values system on your kids, and that you do from a young age make your kids feel that anything that they want to do in life can be accomplished. Again, this isn't a millennial thing. I am more than certain that as my dad was growing up and as my mom was growing up, my grandparents probably instilled this same set of values and instilled in them that anything that you want in life, you can have it. The key is you have to work for it. So Simon mentioned self-esteem, and I have to agree with him here actually. I've met several millennials over the years that do feel the sense of entitlement when it comes to education. They feel they went off, they spent their 4 years at prestigious university, or they went ahead and pursued their MBA, and as soon as they graduate, they assume that they are going to walk into a very well-paying, lucrative role, and the reality is that we all have to start somewhere. So I do give Simon that to his credit. Let's move on.
The other problem to compound it is we're growing up in a Facebook, Instagram world. In other words, we're good at putting filters on things. We're good at showing people that life is amazing even though I'm depressed, right? And so everybody sounds tough and everybody sounds like they got it all figured out. And the reality is there's very little toughness and most people don't have it figured out. And so when the more senior people say, well, what should we do? They sound like this is what you got to do. And they have no clue, right? So you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Through no fault of their own. Right? They were dealt a bad hand.
So before we get to the good stuff, where Simon starts talking about technology and social media and its impact on the millennial generation, he mentions some keywords here like self-esteem, and he also says that we were dealt a bad hand. And I take issue with this because I don't feel that I was dealt a bad hand. In fact, I think I was dealt the same hand and the same opportunity that my mom and dad and any generation before them were dealt. The biggest difference is our generation has access to resources that my parents didn't have access to. So things like the internet allow us to research. Instead of having to go to a library, we can pull out our phone. We can go ahead and look things up. We can acquire knowledge and information a lot quicker than my parents could. So one could make the argument that millennials might even be a smarter generation than our own mom and dad. Listen to the next segment though, because this is really where Simon starts to really strike a chord with me personally when it comes to technology and social media.
Let's add in technology. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive.
So in that last segment, you heard Simon talk about dopamine, which is a chemical that is released in our brain, almost like adrenaline. So it's essentially a stimulant. When you hear people say that they're high on life, well, that high is not because they went out and smoked some weed or did some cocaine. It is actually a high off of dopamine. And this really resonates with me because oftentimes I get that rush, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook. I can't tell you how many times throughout the course of the day I will open up my phone to see who's tweeted at me, who's liked my latest Facebook post, who shared it. I will literally look at Instagram and I will see who has liked. Literally, I'll open it up and see who are the people that have liked my photos. Why didn't a certain person like my photo? Why did this one person comment and someone else didn't? Why are certain people in the marketing industry that I work in not sharing my content, but yet others are? These are all challenges that I personally face, and just like myself, I am certain there are other millennials that face this. So I do give Simon some props here. However, I also want to go ahead and keep it 100 and say this is not just a millennial thing. This is my parents too, and this is every generation before them. I'll give you an example. Growing up as a kid, my parents drove very nice cars. Why do they drive very nice cars? Well, probably because they saw their neighbors and their friends drive very nice cars too. So the same competition that we millennials face today in terms of wanting to fit in because we're the generation that didn't want to get picked last on the playground is no different than mom and dad wanting to get invited to the country club for brunch, wanting to get invited to go golf, feeling left out if their friends got invited to a dinner party that they didn't get invited to. It's no more and no less. Let's go to the next segment.
The science is clear. We know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook, right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad. Too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun. Too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted, right? If you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse.
The most humbling moment of this entire video that you just saw was what I just saw. But imagine processing this throughout the course of the day where you live with this almost like anxiety within you. And I'm speaking about myself here. And this is me opening myself up and exposing myself, if you will. There are times where I feel like I'm a horrible father, I'm a horrible husband. And the reason why, and the real talk, is because I'm awake for about 18 to 19 hours out of a 24-hour day. I don't sleep more than maybe 4 or 5 hours every night. And this device, my iPhone, is by my side or within arm's distance or in my hand. I'd say about 17 to 18 of those hours I'm awake. When you factor in showering and typing on the computer for work, or maybe engaging and interacting in real life, in person with people, that's when the cell phone isn't in my hand, but it's always really close by. And for those of you that have hung out with me, some of you guys know this. If you take my cell phone away from me when we're in person, I start to twitch, I start to get fidgety, I start to get like really paranoid, I can't really focus. And that is the addiction. And most recently in the social media masterminds group that I run on Facebook, someone asked me, Carlos, how is it that you keep up with this volume of engagement? As you guys that follow me know, I'm constantly talking about community building and engaging, and you have to engage your audience, yada, yada. And the answer is because I am always alert to what's happening on social media when it comes to my brand. I'm not looking at what other people are posting. I'm not consuming other people's content as much as I would like, but it's because I am much more wrapped up in the content I'm creating and engaging with those that are engaging with it. So whether it's folks tweeting at me on Twitter or folks sending me a DM on Snap because they just saw my snaps and they love my story, or it's engaging with me now on Instagram through DM or on Facebook. Like I said before, I have a post go out and I'll constantly check it. It's an addiction. And I recognize that habit, and that's the first step to getting help, or the first step to solving that addiction is essentially being self-aware. It's being aware that there's a problem. It's being aware that my daughter and my wife need more time that I'm not giving them because I'm sacrificing time away from family for social media. I'm tuning out what's happening in the world around me to pay attention to social media. So this was the point of the video again, that when Simon spoke, I felt that Simon was speaking directly to me. And I'm really curious to know from others out there watching this video, if this piece relates with you directly. I want you to comment if you're watching this video here on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook or by some other means. Find a way to comment and let me know, because I don't have the answers in terms of how to cure, how to be saved from this addiction, which is social media. But I will say that you can implement right away a few different tactics, such as turning off notifications. If you don't have notifications turned on your phone or on your devices, that's like out of sight, out of mind. I know with me that dopamine that Simon refers to kicks in because I'll get a text and there's that ring button, there's that ding that goes off. You guys know the ding I'm talking about. If it's a Snap message, or if it's an Instagram message, or if it's a tweet, there's the drop down that goes down. And when you're someone like myself that works in social media, maintains a personal brand, is constantly putting out content, and you're getting a few hundred likes per post, imagine a few hundred notifications for just one Instagram post. It's basically the equivalent of getting high 300 times over and over and over. It's almost like taking 300 ecstasy pills, if you will, and feeling that euphoria and that rush for that one moment. So I do thank Simon for bringing this up, because this is, in fact, a millennial issue. A lot of what he said to this point, I could argue that my mom and dad face a lot of the same challenges. Now, I don't ever recall seeing my mom and dad wig out because the newspaper didn't come in on Saturday. They would just go up to a gas station, or they'd go to the supermarket and they'd buy a newspaper. I don't recall seeing my parents wig out because they missed a TV program or because someone didn't call them at a particular time. So technology, for as much as we love it is something that, because our generation has grown up with things like America Online, for those of you that grew up in the 90s, and cell phones, and now smartphones and social media, we are so consumed that we, in our mind, think that social media is real life, when in reality, what's real life is my family, it's my friends, it's people who, in a time of crisis, I can actually turn to and they will be there for me. Social media, what it is, friends, is very much an illusion. It's whatever I want to show you or you want to show me, and vice versa. And again, we play off of this show and tell, which brings us right back to where we were in our adolescence as kindergarteners. You remember show and tell, when it was really cool? You'd come to school and you'd show off like that one cool toy that you want all your friends to know that you have. That's the equivalent today of going on Instagram and showing off your new car, or going on Facebook and posting a picture of your house and all the toys that you have in it. It's show and tell, but show and tell at scale. And that, once again, is a part of this addiction that we all, and I'm saying this subjectively, all, because I want to believe that most millennials do suffer from this, at least the ones that are on social media and portraying this image of, your life is really amazing. It's either amazingly great or it's amazingly bad, but there's really no balance. There's no in the middle. So as Simon goes on, he does start to talk about the balance. So let's roll the next clip.
So you have a generation growing up with lower self-esteem that doesn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress, right? Now you add in the sense of impatience, right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week, right? I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season, right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date? You don't even have to learn how to be like, hey. You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no and says no when you mean no, but yes when you... You don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud. Right? You don't have to learn the social coping mechanisms, right? Everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification. Except job satisfaction and strength of relationships, there ain't no app for that. They are slow, meandering, uncomfortable, messy processes. And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They've just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. I sit down with them and I go, how's it going? They go, I think I'm going to quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months. You know? It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And so what this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love, or job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things, all of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous and long and difficult. And if you don't ask for help and learn that skill set, you will fall off the mountain, or you will, the worst case scenario, and we're already seeing it, the worst case scenario is we're seeing an increase in suicide rates, we're seeing an increase in this generation, we're seeing an increase in accidental deaths due to drug overdoses, we're seeing more and more kids drop out of school or take leaves of absence due to depression, unheard of. These are all, this is really bad. The best case scenario, those are all bad cases, right? The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy.
I gotta give it to Simon here. He is on point. Millennials, at least a lot of the ones that I've met, myself at one point, myself still today, there is a sense of impatience that we need to work on. And I share this with you because I get a lot of questions from younger millennials. I'm talking about folks in their 19, 20, early 20s. And I get this question, I'd say probably at least a handful of times a week via some form of social media where they'll ask, what do I have to do in order to gain a lot of followers? What do I have to do to build my brand? What do I have to do to go ahead and get a lot of people like me? What do I have to do to build my business? What do I have to do to get a lot of website clicks? It's always what do I have to do with scaling upward very quickly. And when I say quickly, I'm talking about within like the next 30 days. And my answer is always consistency and tenacity. Tenacity meaning you have to go ahead and play the long game. You have to be in this for a long time because nothing happens overnight. Today, I have a career that pays me, knock on wood, a good income, good living. I'm able to provide for my family. At 33 years old, it has taken me from the time of 17, when I dropped out of high school and went to go work at a mall selling shoes, to eventually getting a decent job in the banking industry, to losing my job during the recession, to then rebuilding and picking myself up and establishing the career I have today in brand marketing and public speaking. This has been a journey now of about 16 years. Again, from 17 to 33, it's been a 16-year journey. I still don't have 100,000 followers on Twitter. Heck, I'm not even verified on Twitter. I don't have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't have millions of views. A lot of people don't know who I am, but that's okay, because I do recognize that this is all a journey. And at 33, I'm not going to be ready to just pack it all in and retire and call it quits. I'm looking to work the long-term game. It's all about longevity. I want to be able someday for people to look back and be like, wow, this guy was really a game changer for multiple generations. And you have to start somewhere. I think this is the concept that a lot of millennials, especially younger ones, now this sounds like me putting my old man hat on, but this in fact is true. A lot of younger millennials especially need to go ahead and be patient and allow things to happen. You have to keep working. You have to think of yourself as like that locomotive that needs coal. If you remember back in the day with the commercials or maybe the movies before trains were modern like they are today and run on electricity, back in the day trains used to be coal. So the more coal that you put in, the more energy that's created, more friction is created, and that's what helps that train or that locomotive move. Think of your career, think of your life as that. You have to go ahead and keep feeding and working, and you have to feed as much energy into what you do in order to achieve long-term results. Hey, if you want to go ahead and have 100,000 likes tomorrow because you want to be viewed as a thought leader, I go ahead and recommend Googling buy Twitter followers and go buy 100,000 followers. Now, the problem you're gonna have is, are people gonna go ahead and take you serious when they see these followers, but you don't have the chops to go ahead and back it up? So patience is a major key. And once again, I give it to Simon for going ahead and keeping it 100. Next segment.
Yeah. Which leads me to the fourth point, which is environment, which is we're taking this amazing group of young, fantastic kids who were just dealt a bad hand. It's no fault of their own. And we put them in corporate environments that care more about the numbers than they do about the kids. They care more about the short-term gains than the long-term life of this young human being. We care more about the year than the lifetime, right? And so we are putting them in corporate environments that aren't helping them build their confidence, that aren't helping them learn the skills of cooperation, that aren't helping them overcome the challenges of a digital world and finding more balance, that isn't helping them overcome the need to have instant gratification and teach them the joys and impact and the fulfillment you get from working hard on something for a long time that cannot be done in a month or even in a year. And so we're thrusting to them in corporate environments, and the worst part about it is they think it's them. They blame themselves. They think it's them who can't deal. And so it makes it all worse. It's not. I'm here to tell them it's not them. It's the corporations, it's the corporate environments, it's the total lack of good leadership in our world today that is making them feel the way they do. They were dealt a bad hand, and I hate to say it, but it's the company's responsibility. Sucks to be you, like we have no choice, right? This is what we got, and I wish that society and their parents did a better job. They didn't. So we're getting them in our companies, and we now have to pick up the slack. We have to work extra hard to figure out the ways that we build their confidence. We have to work extra hard to find ways to teach them the social skills that they're missing out on. There should be no cell phones in conference rooms. None. Zero. And I don't mean the kind of like sitting outside waiting to text. I mean like when you're sitting and waiting for a meeting to start, this is what we all do. We all sit here and wait for the meeting to start. Meeting starting? Okay. And we start the meeting. No, that's not how relationships are formed. Remember we talked about it's the little things? Relationships are formed this way. We're waiting for a meeting to start and we go, how's your dad? I heard he was in the hospital. Oh, he's really good. Thanks for asking. He's actually at home now. Oh, I'm really glad. It was really amazing. I know, it was really scary for a while. That's how you form relationships. Hey, did you ever get that report done? Oh my God, no, I didn't. I'll help you out. Can I help you out with that? Really? That's how trust forms. Trust doesn't form at an event in a day. Even bad times don't form trust immediately. It's the slow, steady consistency. And we have to create mechanisms where we allow for those little innocuous interactions to happen.
Environment. Environment is the key. You are a product of your environment, and the environment that you surround yourself with, including the people that you consider and call friends, if that environment is not one that brings the best out of you, then you, whether you are a millennial or a Gen Z or a baby boomer or Gen X, you are destined to fail. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The environment and the people that you surround yourself with will make you and break you. They'll either make you smarter or they'll break you down and make you insecure and depressed. And that's real talk, my friends. I can tell you this speaking from experience. I've never had a single boss in my career at any company that I've worked at that's been a millennial. Every single person that I've ever reported to and worked for, including the leadership as you go up the line, are individuals that are a lot older than me. Now, I'm not knocking anyone's age down, because with age comes wisdom. And as a millennial, if you soak up others' wisdom, then you can get a lot further ahead and a lot quicker than your counterparts and peers, regardless of what demographic they fall in. But with that being said, your environment and who you work for, and this is especially true if you're just starting off your career, do some due diligence on the folks that you're gonna report to and roll up to as well. Because these individuals, they hold the keys to your success at the point in time of the company that you work for. The company I work for today, the person I report to, while he's not millennial, he's close in age to me, close enough to understand what millennials go through or who millennials are. Because again, he's relatively close in age. But I haven't always had that. And because I always haven't had that, most companies I work for have the conception, the preconceived notion already in their head of what the stereotype of a millennial is. They speak very loud, they speak very fast, they're very impatient, they want to get promoted. No. What millennials want is they want to feel like they have a purpose and a plan within the corporation. And I challenge anyone who's a non-millennial, who's a leader of people, to put your leadership hat on and to go ahead and lead. Because once you retire and roll off into the sunset, there's going to be another generation coming behind you, and that's the millennial generation. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you'll start seeing many more millennials assume C-level roles at companies. We're already starting to see this. You're already starting to see a lot of millennials, in fact, going off and starting up their own companies. If right now I were to start up my own company, once again, for the second time, guess what? I go back to being a C-level executive. But in the corporate world, in the Fortune 500 world, you are going to start seeing a lot more millennials. And again, it's up to the generations above us to go ahead and create the environment and provide especially the mentorship, which is something that I think a lot of millennials, they either overlook or they just don't see the value in, and they think going to a friend for advice is mentorship. And it's not about going to friends. I always say, go to at least 3 people. Seek 3 mentors that are gonna be able to mentor you in your life and career, and that includes your job as well as being a better parent or being a better father or whatever it might be that you feel that you need to improve. Go off and find 3 mentors that are not within your family. You're definitely not your spouse, because I don't think that your spouse can be a mentor to you. They can be a very good friend and confidant and an ally, but they can't necessarily be a mentor. So go to someone who's not a friend or a family member or spouse. Actually go to 3 people that you respect and admire and ask them to mentor you. Whether that's getting on the phone once a week or once a month. Make sure that you have someone in your corner at all times that before you make a life-altering or life-changing decision related to your career or, again, related to your personal life, at least it's someone that you can go to and you can bounce things off of. If you surround yourself with mentorship, over time, think of yourself as a dull knife that is going to start to be sharpened more and more and more. And then once you have that sharp knife, which are the keys to success, then you'll be able to execute on a whole nother level, because you'll have the knowledge that corporate America by design is not intended to give us.
When you're out for dinner with your friends, like I do this with my friends. When we're going out for dinner and we're leaving together, we'll leave our cell phones at home. Who are we calling? Maybe one of us will bring a phone in case we need to call an Uber or take a picture of our meal.
That goes without saying, come on.
I'm an idealist, but I'm not insane. You know?
Not a heathen.
I mean, it looked really good. We'll take one phone. And so it's like an alcoholic. The reason you take the alcohol out of the house is because we cannot trust our willpower. We're just not strong enough. But when you remove the temptation, it actually makes it a lot easier. And so when you just say, don't check your phone, people literally will go like this. And somebody will go to the bathroom, and what's the first thing we do? The phone. Because I wouldn't want to look around the restaurant for a minute and a half, you know? But if you don't have the phone, you just kind of enjoy the world. And that's where ideas happen. The constant engagement is not where you have innovation and ideas. Ideas happen when our minds wander and we go, and you see something, I bet they could do that. That's called innovation. Right? But we're taking away all those little moments, right? You should not, and none of us should charge our phones by our beds. We should be charging our phones in the living rooms, right? Remove the temptation. You wake up in the middle of the night because you can't sleep, you won't check your phone, which makes it worse. But if it's in the living room, it's relaxed, it's fine. But it's my alarm clock. Buy an alarm clock. They cost $8, right? I'll buy you an alarm clock.
So Simon's last point is all around the cell phone and leaving your cell phone at home if you're out with friends or out with your spouse or your partner. And I actually agree with this wholeheartedly. I can't tell you how many times I've been out to dinner, whether it's with my wife on a date night or it's with my kids, and guess what I'm doing? I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking at ESPN, I'm looking at social media, and that essentially is a distraction that takes you away from what's happening in real life around you. So I, once again, thank Simon for keeping it 100 on his observations of millennials. Now, as we look to wrap this whole thing up, I'm impartial here because I think going into this, Simon presented some very interesting points that have merit and have value, but he also brought up a lot of stereotypes that I think go well beyond millennials, and it's no different if you analyze the generations above us who our parents were growing up as kids. It's probably no different from a parenting standpoint than who we were, who we've become. The biggest difference comes down to technology. Our parents didn't have the same distractions surrounding us as we have. So while our parents would go outside and play for 2 hours every day after school, we instead have something like YouTube, or my kids, who are Generation Z. My kids, they watch YouTube. They don't want to go out and play. They rather watch other people playing on YouTube while being on a device. And this is something, friends, that is not going to change just because there's a very popular YouTube video out there. But what should change, and what I challenge all of my counterparts out there that are hopefully watching this to do, because I know I'm going to make this change in me, is be much more self-aware. Self-awareness in 2017 needs to be a primary focus. If you, whether watching this video of mine or you go back and you watch Simon's entire interview, if anything in your head clicks and says, wow, he's speaking to me, he's describing me, there's a change that I need to make in my life because of X reason, because I'm either not a good parent or a father, or a spouse, like I said before, or there's a deficiency at work, you're not getting your work done on time, you're being written up, you're always late, whatever it might be. If there's anything that resonates in your head because of this video or Simon's, then that is being self-aware. And if you're self-aware, then you are several steps ahead of not just others, but several steps ahead of someone who's not self-aware. Being not self-aware is the true definition of someone who's set up to fail, because you continue going on day in and day out and you don't think that you have a problem that you need to go ahead and address. And because you don't feel that you have a problem that you need to address, you keep sinking yourself further and further and further into this endless dark hole. So stop right now if it means that you are going to go ahead and turn your phone off at certain times, or you're going to disconnect. I'm going to tell you guys what I'm going to do. As soon as I'm done recording this video, I'm going to leave my phone here in my office. I'm going to go downstairs and spend the rest of this Saturday night with my family, as I should have been doing from the jump. But again, self-awareness is the key, and it starts with looking at the big picture. Where can you go ahead and make improvements in your life to give you and your loved ones and those around you more time, love, and attention? And if you do that, then you are on your way to winning and being cured. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you for watching this video. I'm really curious to know what you guys think. This has been a different sort of video for me. I went into more of this kind of riffing and ranting, looking at someone else's point of view, giving you my point of view. If it's something you liked, I'm really curious to know your comments. Drop them here below. I'm going to go ahead and drop a couple of links as well here in the description of this video. One, it's to Simon Sinek's complete interview of millennials in the workplace. The second is a link for his book, Start With Why. So I encourage you to go ahead and check it out. I'm also going to drop a link to his TED Talk as well. So be sure to link up with Simon if you don't follow him already. And as always, guys, subscribe to my channel, please. Once again, I'm a millennial. Those vanity metrics, they all matter. But what really matters most is the direct engagement. I love hearing from you guys. Let's go ahead and rock out together in 2017. And most importantly, let's be more self-aware of who we are as individuals and the impact that we can make on a global scale. That's real talk. I'm out. Peace.